This is Hannibal here from the Hannibal TV on YouTube, and today we have a returning guest, WWE Hall of Famer, former AWA World Champion, has held many titles in the NWA all over the world. He's probably best remembered in WCW as a commentator, but he did have a bunch of matches there as well. Bruno Sammartino's protege, the living legend, Larry Zbyszko.
Thank you, Hannibal.
And how are you doing today? Did you go out trick or treating last night or anything for
You know, I
Halloween?
didn't I didn't trick or treat and walk around, but I handed out a whole bunch of candy to kids, and some costumes were pretty cool. They were all lit up, and some of the kids did an amazing job. Some of the older kids just held out a bag and wanted candy.
Do you still live in the Orlando area?
Yeah, I'm right outside Orlando. I moved down here like 20 some years ago after WCW got bought out because I was a scratch golfer and I wanted to. I played in the senior mini tours, which are all over Florida all year because of the weather. And I tried a couple of PGA senior qualifiers, but just missed it by a couple strokes. But I was a scratch golfer, so that was fun. But and it didn't hurt my body like wrestling.
Did you ever golf with Jacques Rougeau? Because I heard he almost made the PGA Tour as well.
No, never him. In the old days, I golfed with Chief Jay Strongbow was a good golfer. I think Chief Wahoo McDaniels I played with was a good golfer. And George or Sandy Scott, one of the NWA promoter guys, he was a good golfer. But then the rest of the boys weren't good golfers.
What was so good about George Scott as a booker? Because I know he was kind of renowned as this legendary booker and he was booking for WWE in its heyday for a while there.
You know what? To be honest with you, and I don't want to sound stupid, but and I remember the name George Scott, Sandy Scott, because I was there, but I really don't know. I never knew he was with the WWE. Now that you mentioned it, so I really don't know. But they had some good stars, so it was easier to book back then. I mean, you had Rufus Jones, you had Dusty Rhodes, and Magnum before his accident, and Flair, and some other guys, that were over. They were good, so it was easy to book them.
Do you agree that Magnum would have been one of the top stars of all time if he hadn't had his accident? Because that narrative seems to go around for most people from that era.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm really not sure because when I met him, it wasn't long after that he got in the wrecks. I really didn't know the guy. And in those days, when you were in territories, because I wasn't in the NWA a lot, I was back and forth in WWE, then the AWA, then the NWA, then back to the AWA. So I really didn't know. I think his name was Terry. I really didn't know him that well, to be honest with you. And the weird part is, we did a Bruise cruise, and I believe it was an NWA Bruise cruise, with the fans and the wrestlers on a cruise boat. And the weird part was, me and my wife are sitting there next to Terry and his wife to watch a movie on the boat. And the movie that came on, I believe, was titled Doc Holliday, if I got the name right. But it started off with this guy who was running down the road in his car racing and then crashed through a fence and got in a big car wreck. The same thing that recently happened to Magnum. And it was like, we looked at each other and, Magnum says, "Oh, that was great to see." It was like, I felt like an idiot sitting next to the guy when the movie starts with a big car crash. But I think he was very good, and the people, liked him. He was getting over. It's really a bad break. That's too bad.
I know he's admitted, I think that he had a little bit of alcohol that night, but I know the roads played a role in it too because it was raining. But are you surprised there wasn't more major car accidents in those days? Because it seemed like there was a lot of drinking and driving going on with the wrestlers.
You know, I don't know. To be honest with you, I never hung out with a lot of guys. A lot of times I was renting a little plane, flying around, and maybe take one guy with me, sometimes two, a lot of times myself. But I I never drank alcohol. I mean, it made me feel nauseous and puke. I mean, I got drunk one time in my life in college, and it was so horrible, the dry heaves and the puking. I'm thinking, how can people drink this? I never went to bars or hung out with guys that drink, and then if you went to the bar and they're drinking, some fight's going to break out because someone would come up to like Jimmy Snuka or someone else and say, "Hey, I don't think much of your what you call wrestling." Well, there's a fight. So I never went to bars. I never drank my whole adult life.
I know you probably ran into Jimmy Snuka maybe in the AWA and some other places. What are your thoughts on that whole situation with him? I guess he was found civilly guilty at some points, but he didn't have the criminal charges done.
Yeah. I mean, I really don't remember. I mean, I wasn't there when it happened. I guess what he accidentally killed some woman by throwing her or backdropping her over a bed or into the desk. I really don't know the story, but there was some guys I stayed away from, and Snooker was one of them because he was a cool guy. But when some of these guys started drinking, my God, then they turned into other people, and I didn't want any thing to do with them. And I really don't know what happened with. Am I right? Did he like kill a woman by throwing her into?
Yeah, well, there was various versions of it. I think there was one version that something happened in the hotel, and there was another that she went out to pee and she fell, and then he brought her back to the hotel. So I don't know what the real version is, but
Yeah, I really don't know, brother.
yeah, I wasn't sure if you knew more from being on the inside because I've heard Greg Gagne, your old brother-in-law, say that he was fairly erratic sometimes backstage in the AWA with some of his party helper stuff, but he always was able to pull himself together for the matches, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I worked with Jimmy a few times, and we had some great matches. It was easy, and if I remember right, he was the first guy I saw that climbed to the top rope and dove off, and they called it the Superfly. But back then, I mean, compared to today, it's night and day. I mean, no one would even think back then of climbing to a top turnbuckle and doing a backflip and crashing through the announcer's desk. I mean, they're really turned into amazing athletes and they're doing amazing things, but they're also doing high risk things that I'm really surprised more of them aren't hurt.
Well, they only have to wrestle a few times a month now. That's a big difference as well, right? Because
Yeah,
there's no more hardly any house shows, and not everybody wrestles on every TV taping. So
yeah.
there's more breaks, I
And
guess.
they're on a contract. I wish that was around in my day, because back in my day, I mean, we had to wrestle every night to make money, and if you didn't sell tickets, you didn't eat. There was no contract. If you got hurt, you were out of a job. The promoters weren't paying for your surgery. If you're rehabbing a surgery, you're not getting a check. I mean, the WWE has really become a great company over the years that takes care of the athletes who are really working their butts off to entertain the crowd, but there's some dangerous ways they're doing it too.
Yeah, I know you had to work really hard to get in the business, and I've heard you say in other interviews it was kind of looked down upon in the past for outsiders to get in. I know
Hmm.
times have changed, but what do you think of now? A lot of the wrestlers in WWE are actually paid to train, and they're college athletes or bodybuilders or gymnasts or soccer players that might not even have wanted to be wrestlers had it not
Yeah.
be so easy like it is now.
I mean, back in my day, like I said, if you didn't sell tickets, you didn't eat. But they didn't want you in the business. The old timers, Monsoon and Strongbow, and I can go on with a bunch of them. But that was the thing. They didn't want new guys in the business because they didn't want to lose their spot. And, they wrestled every night. And if new guys came in, the promotion would say, well, give this guy a 2-week notice because we're going to use this guy. Because they weren't pulling in the money they are now from pay-per-views and whatever streaming is and, merchandise.
Saudi Arabia money, which has got to be a nice bonus for them, $100 million to bring
Really? $100 million?
For WrestleMania, they're getting supposedly $100 million.
You're kidding. I'm going to make a comeback.
Hey, they might bring you back. I hear that they're thinking of bringing back a lot of the legends for that one.
Well, no one called me, and to be honest with you, I really don't want to fly halfway around the world. And now with the stupid, whatever's going on with the government shutdown, I mean, I talked to some friends. They're delayed for 6-7 hours at the airports, and because of the TSA workers or the air traffic controllers. Right now, traveling's kind of a mess, and I'm not going anywhere, brother. Maybe next year, but we'll wait till all this clears up.
Mort Goldberg talent agencies tipping $5 here, and he says, was Nick Bockwinkel as insufferable as he seemed?
What do you mean insufferable?
Yeah, maybe you want to clarify that, Mort.
Insufferable like what? I don't know.
He had another question here earlier. Did you think Leon White would be as big a star as he became when you first met him in the AWA?
Oh, God, Leon. He wrestled as Vader, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Well, he was a big guy, and he could move good. I think he was an ex-football player maybe or something.
Yeah, he played for L.A.
Yeah, he was a big guy that could move good. And I think in Japan, the Japanese are the ones that gave him that helmet look with the smoke coming out of it or something. And that was a time in the era when things were changing a little bit. And I worked with him a couple times, and that, thank God, it wasn't many because he was so big, but, he'd hurt you without knowing he hurt you. He was a big guy. Nice guy, Leon. I could tell you a story, but maybe I shouldn't.
Well, now you got to tell us.
Well, he was a big boxing fan. And I was never really a big boxing fan or a fan of anything because I was so busy on the road. You never got a chance to watch anything. Every night that something good was on TV, we were in a building doing a show. But Leon was a big boxing fan. And when I was growing up, I was a big fan of Muhammad Ali. And he was like the first boxer that could do great interviews. He was a wrestling fan, Ali, and did kind of like great interviews and got over. Plus, he was great in the ring. And I got a chance to meet him one time at some Comic-Con signing or something, but it was at a time when he had that horrible disease and he couldn't talk good or, walk good or move. But we shook hands. I met him, and you could see his face light up because he was happy to meet me. He was a wrestling fan. And then the next boxer that I didn't get a chance to see much but thought he was really good was Iron Mike Tyson. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because I wrestled in the Tokyo Dome years ago. I wrestled Masa Saito for the AWA Championship of the World. And we sold out the Tokyo Dome with like 66,000 people. And the very next night was the Mike Tyson Buster Douglas fight. And Leon, who was a big boxing fan, like when the match was going, Leon jumped out of his seat because we were sitting like 3 or 4 rows back from ringside, a couple rows behind Donald Trump and Don King. And Leon couldn't take it. He jumped out of his seat and ran to the apron of the ring and went to take a picture. But soon as he did, Iron Mike got hit and down he goes, and Buster Douglas won. The weird part is Leon came back, walking back to the seat, and he was white as a ghost. He looked like he was in shock. And I said, "Did you get a picture of that?" And Mike Tyson got nailed. And he said, "Guys, I don't believe what I heard. As soon as I got to the apron, I heard Mike Tyson say, 'Now, now.' And that's when Buster hit him and Tyson fell down and got counted out." And the weird part that makes sense is the boxing world didn't want the heavyweight champion of the world in jail because Mike Tyson was in trouble for some kind of rape thing, which I don't really know anything about. But it just seems weird it happened in Japan and not in the States where there's athletic commissions and God knows what. But that was a weird thing. And then some years later, I was backstage at a Comic-Con and there was Mike Tyson. And I went up to introduce myself and I went, "Hey, Iron Mike." I said, and before I could say anything else, Mike Tyson went, "Larry Zbyszko, I hated you when I was a kid. Oh, I want to kill you. Why did you hit Bruno in the head with that chair?" So Iron Mike was a big wrestling fan when he was a kid. I think he lived in Brooklyn or the Bronx or somewhere in there, in the days of the WWF territory. But yeah, he was a big fan. Caught me off guard because he hated my guts for hitting Bruno with the chair.
Yeah, I've heard he was a big fan of that era. So Buster Douglas, that was a very controversial and unexpected win. So
Yeah.
you believe more likely than not there was something fishy about that.
Well, I don't know what to believe. And then Leon came back and said he thought he heard him say now, but they could be punching and going, and breathing out. So who knows if Leon was right or wrong, but there's like two sides. Either Buster got a lucky shot in, or they didn't want the heavyweight champion of the world, going through the jail stuff and all the stupid charges, which I'm not even sure what it was really.
Not to mention the betting money you could make off of something like that going
Yeah, because who would think Buster Douglas would beat Tyson? So.
Yeah. Wasn't it Vader against Stan Hansen the night before where his eye got popped out of the socket?
Oh, God.
Was that the same?
That's the first time I saw that. I mean, I heard about that. Leon's eye got busted out?
Yeah, okay, so maybe it wasn't the night before then. But yeah, it happened with Stan Hansen. Stan stiffed him and his eye got popped out of the socket.
Well, Stan Hansen, who's a nice guy, but he was blind as a bat. He'd always have these big glasses on, but when he got in the ring, he was blind as a bat. And so you got some guy 300 and some pounds running at you going, "Ee!" and then he's throwing a clothesline, but it wasn't called the clothesline then. That was like the
lariat.
That was like the very first of them. But guys were scared to death. And then because you could get really hurt with a big guy, clotheslining you in the neck that was blind, so they banned it. They had a state commission guy come out in the New York territory and say, "No, this is too brutal of a thing. It's like punching. This is not wrestling." So they banned the lariat.
Was Bruno ever holding a grudge over Stan breaking his neck? I think they said it may have been from the lariat or something, but didn't he drop him on his head or something?
Yeah, but Bruno was such a big, strong gorilla kind of guy. I mean, he really had no neck. He had a big chest and he had the trapezius muscles that went up to like the bottom of his ears. But you really couldn't break his neck because it was so thick. But what happened was they did some move and Hansen picked him up and I don't know if he slipped out or dropped him or whatever, but Bruno landed on his head. And for 6 months, because I knew Bruno back then, we were close. I was still there training with him. And Bruno for 6 months was going, God, my neck is still irritating me. It's still sore. So he finally went to a doctor he knew and said, hey, doc, this thing is really sore in my neck for the last 6 months. And the doc looked at it, took an x-ray and said to Bruno, how long have you been wrestling with this sore neck? And Bruno said, 6 months. And the doc told me, he said, Bruno, your neck is broken. Bruno broke his neck and didn't even know it. It's how thick his muscle tissue was. He was amazingly strong.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Someone's tipping $2 here. Did you get along with Tom Zink in the AWA and WCW?
Tom Zink, yeah, he was an all right kid. I mean, there was a lot of younger guys. I mean, when I was in AWA and the NWA, there was a lot of younger guys coming up. Tom Zink, Kurt Hennig was a great guy coming up. And probably more if I, think about it without the senior moments. But I got along with all of them, and they were all very respectful. Sometimes they'd ask me for my advice because I was already established when they were starting. And I could try and think of more guys. Was it Eddie Gilbert? Then he died. I mean, I can go on, but no, I mean, yeah, Tom was a good guy. I remember right. I'm, one of the new young generations coming up.
What do you think about Buff Bagwell losing his leg? I guess that's stemming from driving while intoxicated and on illegal substances.
Wait, he lost the leg?
Yeah, his leg is amputated.
Is that lately?
Yes. Within the last 4 or 5 months, I think.
Oh, God, I might have heard something like that. Tell you the truth, I don't remember because there's so many guys now in the business. I mean, between AEW, WWE, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, there's a bunch of guys. I remember hearing something about, but I thought maybe it was Marty Jannetty that got his foot amputated or something. Yeah, I didn't know about the
Marty has an ankle issue, but his foot is still there. I'll put up a picture here of.
No, don't gross me out.
There he is.
Oh God!
Didn't you commentate his Raw match that supposedly helped kibosh the whole WCW invasion in some way? Were you one of the commentators of Raw when he wrestled Booker T?
On Raw?
Yeah.
Well, I never commentated for the WWE.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm thinking of someone else because they had Bagwell against Booker T just after WCW closed.
Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, I didn't. That's when I moved to Florida. But yeah, I never did any commentating for the WWE. I wish I did. It would have been great, but it just didn't happen.
Yeah, someone actually was asking on here why Vince Jr. never brought you in. Was that, I know I read your book, Adventures in Larryland, and there was some issues, I guess, related to how they were using you after the Bruno feud. So you left the territory. But
yeah, I mean, I was a young guy, and Bruno was my in. I got a lot of not respect, but recognition. I had more political clout than I thought I did because I was young, but because I was Bruno's protege, everybody was nice to me. But it wasn't really me and McMahon. Bruno still had kind of a chip on his shoulder about some past dealings with the McMahons and didn't want to get involved with them. Plus, he was older, so he didn't want to get back involved on TV or anything. But that really didn't have nothing to do with me. I was kind of caught in the middle of the Bruno McMahon senior, not really junior, kind of thing. But I was doing okay because, like I said, I was going back to AWA, the NWA, Japan, back to the NWA, the AWA. Because back in those days of the territories, the only place you got publicity from was the WWF on the magazines, The Wrestler, Wrestling Review. You got George Napolitano, Bill Apter running around. And so people in the Midwest and the South and the West, whatever, they only heard about you and knew about you because of the magazines. So that was the place you really got all the publicity. And I got all the publicity, right kind of at the end of my big run with Bruno and Shea Stadium. If you look at the eras and the changing of them, it was kind of the Shea Stadium, which was unheard of for its time, had like 44,000 people, but they turned like 6,000 people away because the baseball park people, whatever, they wouldn't allow chairs to be put on the infield or the outfield because they figured with the chairs digging in that they would screw up the whole, grass and sand and mounds and that. But that kind of marked the end of an old school era. And right after that, the era changed into where the territories were dying out and being replaced by nationwide cable. And then the Wrestle Wars kind of started where it wound up the WWE versus the Turner, WCW thing. And I was kind of with the WCW thing at the time. And they gave me a good chance to do something else I'm really proud of. And I'll tell you about it as soon as I show you the Halloween Boo on Me shirt. But I'm the one that named the New World Order. And I'm the guy that programmed how it all started, how Scott Hall first made his first entrance, etc. Because if you start something off right and do it right, you'll get the best result you can. And Eric was in there, he listened to some people, and Eric was smart enough to know that some ideas were dumb, but then when he heard what I had to tell him, he went, yeah, that's it. That's what we'll do. So that made me feel good because 25 years later, people are still wearing NWO shirts, and that was, again, like another big thing at the end of an era when heat was kind of dying and going away. And, pay-per-view and the big, awesome productions with the fireworks and the pyro and the video walls and the music and all that were, coming into play. If that makes sense.
I know that you booked your own angles in WCW. So you're saying, too, you may not have been an official writer there, but you would advise Eric Bischoff here and there on what you thought would be good angles for WCW?
Yeah, I wasn't a writer then, but I knew Eric from the AWA and helped him get into WCW, in the early days. And I was a private pilot, took him flying with me one time. He loved it. He went out and he got a private pilot's license and bought himself a little Cessna. And like I said, he had other guys there too, Dusty, Kevin Sullivan, but there were some guys throwing a lot of weird ideas around. But then, Eric would ask me, I'd say, Eric, this is what I would do. And when he heard it, he said, yeah, the New World Order, that's the name. And then they had a different idea for Scott Hall or someone coming in at the beginning. And I said, no, you can't do that. If I was you, I would do this because that would shock everybody. And it did. And it worked out good. And Eric was, smart enough to listen, and it made sense to him. He was a smart guy.
I gotta ask you, with all the talk about UFOs these days in the news, have you ever seen anything unusual up there during your flights?
No, to be honest with you, I never saw any flying saucers or anything. And the little planes, you really couldn't go much above 10,000 feet because you start running out of oxygen at 12,500. Plus, you got, the planes I'd rent would have 150 horsepower or maybe 180 horsepower. But yeah, I was never higher than 10,000 feet or so because then you ran out of oxygen. But I never saw any flying saucers.
Do you think it's possible that there could be something out there, or do you think those are kind of black military projects going
Well,
on that they're just not revealing?
I really don't know, to be honest with you. The only thing I know is I've studied mythology and nature for some years after the internet started showing stuff on YouTube where I could listen to people who studied mythology for years and put it together and things that made sense. Because we're living on the only living planet in our solar system, which circles around the galaxy. That's our natural power source. And we go through the ages, the golden age, the silver age, the bronze age, the iron age. Unfortunately, for us right now, we're in the iron age, iron standing for density, and we don't get all the energy we should be having or getting. And it's easy to deceive humanity in the iron age. That's why you got wars all over. That's why people hate each other because there's 50 different religions and oh, you got this God, you got that God, you got this God, our God hates your God. We must have war. Things that make no sense because there's only one race on this planet, the human race. And because we survived multiple, over a long, long time, extinction level events, the human race comes in dark, medium, and light. But there's only one race, the human race. And the body is a temporary vehicle. And when it's over, our energy, you call it the soul if you want to, goes back home, which right now is the center of this galaxy. That's where we're in. But we can go to other galaxies because there's billions of them, and the universe is infinite. So life will keep going and making more of itself. Like, it reflects here on this planet the two electromagnetic charges, the feminine energy and the masculine energy. The feminine energy is the creative. The masculine energy protects and provides her creation that she needs a man to create. Like two magnets, if they're the opposite charge, you get them close, boom, they come together. And it's such an ecstasy, we create more of ourselves. We call them babies in this dimension. But there could be life, and I'm sure there's life. God knows what it looks like all throughout the endless universe somewhere. I mean, most life on this planet is microbial, but I'm sure there's life somewhere in this infinite universe.
Have you been following at all the Three Eye Atlas interstellar object that's just coming out from behind the sun right now that's been in the news the past few months?
The few months, I really didn't hear much. I think a few days ago or so. I mean, I have a flip phone.
Right.
So that tells you where I'm at. I mean, I talk to human beings. I don't do social media. I don't tweet. I don't, do whatever. But someone said that there's something coming towards the Earth that is supposed to be coming nearby the Earth in 2 or 3 weeks or something. And it doesn't look like an asteroid or a meteorite. It has the characteristics or speed or whatever of something that might be a spacecraft. But I heard that from somebody.
Yeah, it's an interstellar object the size of Manhattan, and it's behind the sun right now, and it's changed colors, and they're saying it's blue, and it's turning blue. It's been green at certain points,
Huh.
and it's showing some signs that it may have some technological abilities. So there's Harvard scientists investigating this.
Huh.
In theory, it's supposed to just come right out of our solar system. So I guess we'll find out because it's going to be closest to Earth around December 19th.
Yeah, that's like I said. I heard it from somebody, and I don't watch a lot of news, but I'll click around, and I haven't heard anything about it on the news I see. One's the local news, but I really don't. There's 24-hour news services. It's too redundant. So I'll check it out once in a while, but I really don't know. When I was a kid growing up, we had 3 stations in the early 50s, and every house had a big giant antenna sticking up the roof. And television ran during the day, had their big show that ended at 10 o'clock at night. And then from 10 to 10:15 was the news. 15 minutes of news at night, 10 to 10:15, and that was it. From 10:15 to like midnight, they'd have the late night movie feature. And then at midnight, the television would go off. You'd have a picture of an Indian, I think, or something. And now there must be 3,000 stations. I mean, I'm involved in a new show called Shoot Pro that I think signed a deal with some streaming thing. It used to be Fight, now it's called Trilla. Trilla.
Yeah, which I was mentioning to you. I think your commentator sadly passed away, Matthew Granahan. So I hope the
Yeah,
show continues on because I know it was right about to debut around the time he passed away.
yeah. Well, it's supposed to start like in a week or two, maybe. I mean, and the guy met. I mean, I never met the guy. I never knew him. This guy who started it hooked it up, and the reason I did it was because I kind of believed in it because it's not a show, it's an ancient sport, and I could do it on Zoom watching it. And this guy Matt was at his house on Zoom, so I didn't have to fly to Vegas or Denver or wherever they were filming it. Because flying around, it's freaking me out nowadays. But yeah, we got a season done. Should be starting in a week or two. People can Google it. It's called shootprowrestling.com. And they'll tell you all about it. And we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be interesting because it's unlike the UFC. There's no punching. There's no kicking. That's one thing I didn't get into with that stuff because it looked too sloppy. A lucky punch, a low blow kick. You could see that in the bar, punching, kicking. But this is a true art and an ancient sport of science of anatomy where you can put a grip on no one can get out of, how to break someone's arm, pop an elbow out, and we'll see what happens. So shootprowrestling.com. Check it out.
And I know you don't follow the news, but I believe at one point, the York Foundation had you and Mike Rotundo, and there was 2 different stories that came out about Mike Rotundo this week. One from Barry Windham.
This week?
Barry Windham said he was in hospice care. And then the daughter came out and said Barry was mistaken. He just had 2 heart attacks and he's in rehab. So I don't know which one to believe, but either way, it seems like he's not doing too well. So is that news to you as well, or did you?
Yeah, that's news. I mean, like I said, I talk to humans on my flip phone, but I don't read, social media or do something. So if something weird happened where people post stuff and everybody reads, I'm the last to know. But yeah, I didn't hear anything about Mike. I mean, about what, B. Brian Blair, did you say?
No, Mike Rotundo.
Oh, Mike Rotundo.
I don't know what his real last name is because he used both of them, but I know weren't you with him in the York Foundation in WCW when he was VK Wall Street or Michael Wall Street or something?
The
briefly?
York Foundation.
Or you were in WCW with with him when he was part of, what's her name? Alexandra York and Terry Taylor and Robert Gibson. Maybe you feuded with them.
Maybe, to
But
be honest with you, I really don't remember that. If I was, it wouldn't have lasted long at all, because then they had me in the Dangerous Alliance group Bill Watts did, and he
yeah,
was an a-hole. And he was proud of being an a-hole. But I didn't want to be part of a group. All Bill wanted to do was push Eric Watts. But I didn't want to be part of a group because I spent 20 years, promoting myself, the living legend, and I wanted to keep the thing, going as a single star because you did better and made more money. So what happened was, and this is interesting, when I was in the group, I told TBS, "Oh, my knee hurts." And it did. I've had 4 little knee surgeries, nothing horrible, but cartilage tears, they moved up. So I went in, they took out the cartilage torn, and I was rehabbing, floating in the pool for a couple of months because I didn't want to be part of the group. Then thank God they fired Bill Watts. But during this 2 months, I got a call from a guy named Craig Leathers, one of the producers, and said, "Hey, Larry, can you do us a favor? Jesse the Body just quit. And can you come down and voice over a couple of shows that are already in the can, for the syndicated markets, and do the color commentating on them?" And I felt guilty. I was getting paid plus getting bored. So I said, "Yeah, no problem. That'd be great." And I lived 20 minutes away from the CNN Center. So I went down and I did a couple of shows doing the color. And the door busted open afterwards. And this guy, Craig, comes in and says, "Larry, you're the greatest guy we've ever heard doing the color. Do you want a job as a color man? We'll give you this much a year as an employee." And it was like 3 times what I was making as a wrestler. It was the time when Turner was giving money away like it was candy, because they had contracts, and it was a time when they didn't want talent jumping from them to the WWE, and then the WWE didn't want their guys jumping to WCW. So it happened to be a complete luck out because I've never, ever thought of doing the color commentating. And it just happened. And that gave me a 10-year run of reaching a new generation, and people loved it, and I didn't get hurt. So it was like a blessing from something that was meant to be, but I never planned it. But thank God.
maybe you were away during this time, but perhaps you could clear this up because Eric Watts, Bill Watts' son, I interviewed, and he told a story that he roughed up ravishing Rick Rude in the dressing room in WCW during the time of Bill Watts. You mentioned you were at least employed during that time. Do you remember hearing anything about this, or is this Eric Watts's imagination?
To be honest with you, I really don't remember much of Eric Watts. He wasn't there that long, was he? I mean,
No, I think when Bill was out, I think Eric was brought back during the NWO time, but as a jobber.
Yeah, maybe,
Under a
but
different gimmick. But
I
Bill
really
kind of
didn't.
pushed him to the move, and he got a lot of heat.
But I really didn't know him, and I don't know. I never really heard about that. And then once in a while, there might be a push and shove in the locker room, but that was pretty rare. And Rick Rude wasn't 100% mental player either. So nothing Rick Rude would do would surprise me. But I really don't know anything about that. I mean,
Did you ever hear about that rumor of why Rick Rude killed himself? Because allegedly he tried to inject himself with that Viagra stuff and something went wrong.
God, it was something weird. It wasn't Viagra. It was something new that came up because they were going through the era of the steroids. And I never did steroids. I was 245, 50 pounds in my prime. And because I already had a name and tons of heat, it wouldn't do me any good to take steroids. I waste money. I hate needles. And, I was already over. So why bother? And again, I hate needles and injecting. I never got a flu shot, never got the flu. But Rick was into a lot of steroid abuse. And there was something else. I can't remember the name of this product that came out because steroids were starting to get heat. In the old days, people really didn't pay much attention to it, but then it became illegal.
Human growth hormone, I think you might be thinking of, because
maybe that's it. But I know that
testing.
Whatever it was that Rick Rude was, if you knew Rick, if it said take, 1 teaspoon, he'd drink half the bottle. Rick was a little out there. But yeah, he overdosed on something, but I really can't remember the name of that stuff.
Yeah, sad situation. Another guy that I've heard was known to take a lot more of whatever the doctor said was the Ultimate Warrior, who was in WCW for a while. Do you have any memories of that run when he was on Nitro for that bit?
Well, not really. I was still into the old school of things. And the Ultimate Warrior and some other guys, they were into the new era, and the new era lost contact with the psychology of how to work, how to get in the ring and thrill the crowds. What they all got into was looking great and looking like, a bodybuilder more than a wrestler. Lex Luger looked great, but if you see his matches, they're all 3 clotheslines and a torture rack. But he looked great. And, so did Billy Graham look great, but then he had liver problems. And so there was a lot of guys that abused the steroids and stuff and didn't concentrate on the business and how to reach emotionally with the crowd. And I wasn't involved or wanted any part to do with that stuff.
What were your thoughts when you heard about Elizabeth passing away after being with Lex Luger? And I guess he had a huge stash of all kinds of stuff when she passed.
Well, I didn't know her good. The Macho Man and Elizabeth were, some guys that I never dealt with them. And when I was doing the commentary, I'd be there hanging out in the back with Heenan talking. I did the first half of the show. When Bobby's half came, I got in my car and took off. And I never knew Miss Elizabeth. I might have met her once, but she was with Macho Man, right? And then she was caught or something having a fling with Lex Luger. Is that the thing?
Yeah, I don't know, but there's a lot of switching in wrestling, because I know Magnum took Tully's wife at one point, and I think Brian Pillman took Ultimate Warriors. There's a lot, and what Steve Austin took Billy Jack Haynes's. So there's a lot of mixing in wrestling, isn't there?
Oh yeah, and there was Mongo too. Mongo, the football player.
Oh yeah, with Austin. Deborah was with both Mongo
Deborah
and Austin. Yeah.
Yeah, there was some of that going around, but I was happily married with kids. And
you and Missy at one point too, and wasn't Missy with a bunch of them?
Missy Hyatt?
Yeah, wasn't Missy Hyatt?
I didn't. I knew Missy, but not a lot. I know she wound up marrying Eddie Gilbert. Is that it?
Yeah, I believe she was with Eddie Gilbert.
And then he died.
Then there's Sonny, who was with probably maybe the most wrestlers of them all.
Yeah, Sonny, and to tell you the truth, I don't even know if I met her once. I've heard the stories, but Sonny was, from what I hear, just an absolute nut job. Is she in prison?
Oh, come on, Larry. You can admit it.
No, I didn't. I didn't.
Yeah, she is in prison. She's in prison for like 25 years.
You know.
Yeah. She's in prison for like 25 years for
Oh,
killing somebody. And they should have
oh,
locked her up before because that was like her ninth DUI.
oh
Like
my
how
God.
many times?
I heard she was nuts, but I really didn't know her. And the weird thing is when she first started broadcasting, right? I think
Yeah,
I thought
she started managing, then they had her broadcasting,
when
and
I first
then
heard her broadcast, I thought you did a pretty good job.
yeah.
But then, I never got it because I was always doing WCW stuff, and at the same time, the WWE was on doing their stuff. So I never really got a chance to watch what they were doing because I was always on the other channel at the same time. And I really don't know anything about Sonny, the Ultimate Warrior, getting his heart attack. But my God, can you imagine how much gas the Ultimate Warrior was full of?
And I heard too, I mean, this is just hearsay, but I heard he was a big speed guy, and I'm sure you know in the 80s a lot of the guys were known to use that before matches. I guess it would give you like a boost.
I guess. I mean, I
I
really
know
don't.
you never took anything, and I fully believe it with you.
I
Never
mean,
heard anything contrary.
yeah, but I was just raised by the old school. I mean, Bruno never drank. He'd have a glass of wine once in a while, the Italian thing. But I never went to bars because of the problems. The one time I got drunk in college, I puked my guts out. Then it was such a horrible feeling. I could never do it. I had two young cousins 17, 18 years ago that were driving down the highway drunk, went off the road, both got killed. And I'm thinking, why isn't alcohol illegal, for Christ's sake? It's ruining people's lives and killing them. I don't get it.
Yeah, and another famous couple we're forgetting about where a woman dated both famous wrestlers is Kevin Sullivan and
Oh,
Chris
woman.
Benoit. That didn't end up very well, and
No,
Sullivan just passed away. Do you have any memories of him?
Benoit?
No, well, Benoit passed away a while ago. I don't know if you know Kevin Sullivan died last year.
Oh, Kevin. Yeah, I heard Kevin. Yeah, I was at some show over a year ago and Kevin Sullivan was there, but he couldn't come out of his room because something happened to him and he couldn't walk and he was in bad shape. And I know,
He's one that should have listened to your advice on alcohol, and
yeah,
I do like him, but it really I think he'd still be here if it wasn't for alcohol.
yeah, it's true. A lot of people would still be here if it wasn't for alcohol. But I really didn't, I mean, Kevin was kind of out there, but I never really hung around him. And I met woman a couple of times, but I never hung around her. And who was the guy she was with after Kevin?
Chris Benoit,
No, Benoit. That's right. And
yeah,
then he killed her, a
and a
kid.
4-year-old kid or something.
Oh my God! Yeah, and then killed himself. I
A
mean, talk
lot of
about
people
the
tried to blame Kevin for it too, but I really don't think so because if you look into it, there was a history of domestic abuse there.
yeah. I mean, I don't know, but it's just sad for that kind of stuff to happen to people. But that's again, we're in the Iron Age.
You have two people on here saying you deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Guys, he is in the Hall of Fame. He's just
Thank
been in
you.
there so long you don't remember.
10 years now.
Yeah, that's
Inducted by Bruno. That was the end of a dream come true. So.
now, at one point, someone was asking here, you used to be Vern Gagne's son in law. What was that like? Because we always hear the grumpy stories about Vern, and we know he's a good payoff guy and stuff, but did he have a sweet side that you got to see ever?
Yeah, he was a decent guy, and the AWA was a territory where you could make money in Vern because Vern had a lot of money for himself and stuff. He was a good payoff guy, and it was a great territory to work in. The funny bit was, me and Kathy, well, we started dating a little bit, but we wanted to keep it a secret because when it gets out in the business, all the bullshit. So me and Kathy went to a Bob Seger concert downtown Minneapolis one day, and sitting right behind us is Greg Gagne. So we and Kathy got busted being out together. And then I remember I got a message the next day that, hey, Vern would like you to come in the office and have a talk with you. And I thought to myself, oh, great. Okay, I'll be in tomorrow. So I went there and I went in his office and he wasn't in yet. He was doing something. Then Vern came into the office and when he saw me, I went, Dad. And Vern went, he didn't know what to reply, but it worked out good. Me and Kathy got 2 kids, healthy grandkids. She's a wonderful mother, a heck of a woman, so no complaints.
I heard that Vern liked to wrestle people after he'd had a few drinks. Did he ever try that with you?
No, he was, by the time I got there, Hannibal, he was already, getting up there. So I never wrestled him and I never really saw him wrestle anybody.
What happened with him in the retirement home there where it came out that he accidentally killed somebody, I guess?
He didn't do anything. He was Vern had bad dementia. And they had him in a room. And I don't know if it was a hospice or a senior care or whatever they call them. He had him in a room. And everybody that worked there, he was so famous in Minneapolis, that area. Everybody knew Vern Gagne was there in that room. Well, one day, some old 90-some-year-old guy is walking down the hallway with a walker. And he falls over on the floor right by Vern's door. And some idiot who worked at this old people home started saying, oh my God, Vern Gagne came out, put the guy in a sleeper. I think that's what he was famous for in his day. Put the guy in a sleeper and killed him. And some idiot in the news picked it up and threw it out there. Like rumors say Vern Gagne killed a guy with a sleeper in the old people's home. Which is a lie. Vern could not get off a chair without someone helping him. He's not going to get up, run to the door, put someone in a sleeper that you don't even remember, and kill him. But what happened was he got so much publicity, the family couldn't get Vern in another old nursing home because all the nursing homes thought he was potentially dangerous, like he might have killed somebody or did, they felt for the news. I would have sued the hell out of the newspaper. But it wasn't fair. It wasn't right. And that's why, again, I really don't watch a lot of news because I don't believe in a lot of news. I think the term fake news fits news more proper because what they're into is ratings and sponsors, maybe not so much the truth.
Here's a good question from Brian. You were AWA champion, so you know all about this. How did Vern elevate the AWA world title to a legitimate world title when other territories couldn't do that?
Well, God, that must have been, some years before I got there. But that was, again, the days of the territories. If you wrestled in Minnesota, St. Paul, your TV would go to Chicago, Milwaukee, Fargo, North Dakota, some parts of Illinois, that area. And so to say we got the world champion, but that was the same thing being done by the NWA in Charlotte and Greensboro and whatever. And in Texas, Devon Eriks, they had world champion, but no one knew about anybody else because you didn't get their TVs. The TVs in the days of the territory were, local. But I really don't know that exactly all that. I was so busy just trying to keep myself over and making money, that some of the business stuff they were into, I don't know. And I didn't care. I just wanted to know how much I was making.
Were you with them right until the end because you were part of the family?
Uh yeah, basically I was. And it's kind of interesting because the family was trying to get Vern to close the doors, to close the AW down before he did, before it went out of business and he shut it down. They wanted him to shut it down because they saw the new era coming. The national television, the WWE had a big jump on all the other territories, and they wanted him to shut down, but he didn't want to. And for a little while, the Crockett's and Vern worked together. They ran, they ran that big thing.
Pro Wrestling USA.
Yeah, they ran that big building in New Jersey.
The Meadowland. Didn't you do Chicago too?
Yeah, Meadowlands, Chicago. But they tried to work together and to make it new because the AWA had, this talent for so long, and the NWA had this talent. So it was a way for new matches to happen. I always thought me and Flair would have a great match, and that was kind of talked about happening, which would have been great, but it never happened because
he was afraid of you, right?
No, I wasn't afraid of me. It's just the Crockett's and the Gagnes, too many cooks in the kitchen, and they couldn't agree on business deals. So it just never happened. And finally, Vern shut the door and TBS bought out, the NWA and became WCW. And then that started a new era of the Wrestle Wars, the WWE versus WCW.
Was that time around the time Baby Doll was managing you and that weird angle happened with Dusty and the pictures that never ended up coming to fruition?
Yeah, the me and Baby Doll thing, I think, might have happened a little before that. And what the story was, what happened in reality was Baby Doll married Sam Houston, who was someone's brother. Jake
Roberts' brother, yeah, Grizzly Smith's son.
Yeah, so Baby Doll got married, and I'm having a senior moment. What was his name?
Sam Houston.
Sam Houston. I'm thinking of Jake Roberts.
Who is a good guy now, by the way. I don't know if you've seen him, but I don't know how he was back then, but he's found God and he's a good guy these days.
The younger guy starting, but he was real jealous of Baby Doll. Like a lot of young guys are jealous, or a lot of young people get jealous. So they had this thing going with me and Baby Doll where Dusty had this idea about blackmailing him for a match. So Baby Doll was walking out with this envelope that was supposed to have some incriminating evidence in it to blackmail Dusty. And they were doing an interview, and I don't know exactly what they were talking about, but at the end, Baby Doll was supposed to grab Dusty and give him a big kiss. But when Sam Houston found out about the big kiss, he freaked out, got jealous, wouldn't let her do it, put up a big stink. And when Baby Doll went out to do the interview, at the end of the interview, she didn't give Dusty the big kiss because it was supposed to represent the kiss of death. And she didn't give him the kiss. She walked off. And that pissed off the Crockett's because she didn't do what she was told, and there was no angle set up, to blackmail Dusty, this and that. So after that, basically, the Crockett's fired Baby Doll because she didn't give Dusty the kiss of death. So it was the kiss of death in one way. It was just against Baby Doll.
Do you think the polka dot angle was a punishment thing to Dusty or a humiliation thing? Because they deny that, and they always say, "No, that was what we thought would get him over the best."
Well, to be honest with you, I don't know who to believe. I mean, Dusty has been around so long. He had that son of a plumber kind of image, guys, for years that people, and Dusty was over. And to dress him up in polka dots, to me, was kind of silly. I mean, it was like a waste. So I don't know if you can call it revenge or Vince, but I don't see why Vince would want to make someone stupid and silly and put him on his TV show. But you never know. It was also the time when the names, Dusty Rhodes and other people, the names were disappearing because it wasn't, Jimmy Snuka, it wasn't Randy Savage, it wasn't this, it was the Macho Man, the Superfly, the Hot Rod, the Hulk. Everybody had a gimmick name instead of their name. That was going through a phase, I guess. So I don't know if it was a revenge rib. I don't know what the revenge would be about, or if it was just an idea Vince had because he was coming up with all these weird names for guys.
I think the only revenge would be that he was the booker of the rival company. But quick question here from Brian Burson. Did you ever call matches with Gordon Soley, and how would you rank him as an announcer?
Yeah, in fact, Gordon was the first guy I ever did it with when I was floating in a pool and they called me to ask me to come down. Gordon Soley was the one I did my first commentating with. And he came from an era where it was always a one guy commentator. When Vince Jr. was doing the commentating, it was just Vince. Gordon was doing it in the Florida territory with Eddie Graham and some of the Georgia stuff, and it was just Gordon Soley and probably some others. But he was a one-man show, and he was the first guy I did the commentating with. And he was easy to work with, and I enjoyed working with him. And like I did with everybody else that's been around longer than me, I listened and learned. I kept my mouth shut, but I learned because that was the important part, learning the business.
Rick Brooks, one of the members here, wanted to know what you thought of Killer Tim Brooks and Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer.
Oh, well, there was a couple that could have used some psychological help, I guess. I mean, Buzz was kind of not in a horrible way, but they were kind of goofy. Did Buzz get killed in a car wreck or something?
I believe it was an overdose related
An
to
overdose, yeah.
illegal substances.
Okay, I mean, but Buzz.
He was probably in some car wrecks, though, I would imagine, with how wild he was.
Yeah, but Buzz was out there, and I never really hung around him because I didn't want really anything to do with him. And who was the other guy you mentioned?
Killer Tim Brooks.
Tim Brooks. I mean, he was a guy, and I never hung around with him a lot. We did some angle together, I think in the NWA with a belt, where he was going to win the belt, then I was going to buy it from him. And that worked. And again, it's that stupid alcohol. When Tim Brooks wasn't drinking, he was a good guy, normal guy. But then when he started drinking, he would change. One time we were sitting kind of in a bar club after the show, and someone said something, and Killer Brooks gets up, slowly walks around the table, gets behind the guy, puts him in a rear chin lock, and starts yanking his hair out by the roots. Strands of hair, Killer Brooks once yank. That's the last time I probably was anywhere with him. I'm realizing, oh my God, him too, another one. It's amazing yeah.
I heard another interview where you were talking about Abdullah the Butcher used to dress with gold rings and alligator skin boots, and he's had a ton of GoFundMe lately. He's begging for money.
He did?
Yeah, I heard you saying he was telling you how to dress and show off rings and boots. But in recent years, he's been begging for money from fans. What do you think of people like that make so much money in their career
and then
and
blow.
then have nothing in their last days?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't know. The one thing you mentioned was I just started in the business in Pittsburgh. And I think Bruno was running that Pittsburgh area. And Abdullah the butcher was at some hotel by the airport. And he asked me if I would pick up Abdullah and drive him to some town outside of Pittsburgh where the show was that night. And I just started now. This could have been my fourth, fifth, sixth match. I don't know. So I said, yeah, I'll pick up. I'd never met Abdullah before, didn't know anything about him. So I pull up, pick up Abdullah. We drive off to the town, maybe talked about a little bit. And then when we get to the town, Abdullah says, now let me give you some advice on being a professional and making these people get into you. And then he shows me his hand. He goes, you see this big, giant gold ring? Well, watch this. So he opens the door of my gremlin I had. He opens the door. He says, first, you stick out your hand so people see the big, giant gold ring. And then the next move is you stick your foot out with the expensive alligator skin boots. And then when you get out of the car, you got another big. So he's telling me this stuff of how to get out of a car with phony jewelry on and stuff, so people think you're somebody, a big star or something. But it was weird. I mean, I just started. I'm thinking, really, I'm starting to realize that some of these wrestlers aren't that normal.
Yeah. No, he's far from normal. And last thing here, someone wanted me to ask you, what's the story behind this photo? We got all you guys with your world championships here.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, I haven't seen Ricky. I haven't seen Sarge for a while.
Ken Resnick's a good guy. I've met him a couple times and interviewed him.
Yeah, Sarge is a great guy. And me and Sarge, I got 3 big compliments in my life that were special, and one involving the Sarge was one of them. Yeah, good guy, and with that chin he had, he looked like a Sarge, but I don't remember where that picture was taken or anything about that. But I had 3 real heartwarming compliments throughout my career. One was me and Sergeant Slaughter had a match in Chicago. And after the match, I came backstage and Bockwinkel was behind the curtain looking out into the horizon, the building there. And he looked at me and went, Larry, that was a 10. And for Bockwinkel to say that meant that was super great. And I took it as a great compliment. The other big one was I wrestled Tommy Rich in one town for 60 minutes. It went a 60-minute Broadway. And when I came back, Harley Race came up to me in the back and said, Larry, that was the greatest 60-minute match I've ever seen. And I went, God, thank you, Harley. And I took that to heart from an old pro. The third one was I had a match in Texas. I can't remember the guy's name. It was Cowboy something. And we had a hell of a match. And when I came backstage, Lou Thez came up to me and said, Larry, you're the greatest wrestling heel I've ever seen. And it really got me in the heart that these guys would kind of give me the ultimate compliment. And I learned all that by keeping my mouth shut and learning from a bunch of guys who've been there, done that, So
did you ever wrestle Andre?
I never wrestled. I never wrestled Andre in a one-on-one against each other. But I tag teamed with Andre sometimes. And this is a funny story because after Andre would win the match and beat somebody, I would stand there in the ring. Andre would come up, put his arm under my legs and butt, and pick me up in the air over his shoulder. And we'd wave to the crowd, and the crowd would go nuts. And we did that a few times. And one time we win the match. Andre comes over to pick me up over his shoulders, and I go to play a rib on Andre. And when he got me up the highest, I went, whoa, whoa. And I fell backwards and on the way down, I could see him trying to grab me, going, oh, oh, like he thought he dropped me. And I laid there for a second. And when I opened my eye a little bit, Andre's face was right there. And he saw me start to smile, and he went, you bastard, because he knew I ribbed him. So I got him. So later on, after the show, we're in a hotel, and there was 4 or 5 guys talking. Andre was one of them. So I get up with a towel, naked. I had a towel with me I grabbed because I was going to jump in the shower. Well, as I walk past the bed to get in the shower, Andre grabs me, opens the hotel door, pushes me out into the hallway, yanks the towel away, and slams the door. And no one's going to, do anything about that. They all started laughing their asses off. Now I'm standing in a hotel in the hallway completely naked, not knowing what the hell to do. There was no cell phone. Naked. I'm standing out in the hallway.
Be happy there was no cell phones, or that would be all over the internet today.
Yeah, God forbid. But, so finally I started yelling, and someone came around and said, "Will you get the manager, please?" And they locked me out for a joke. And finally the manager came up. But I was for 10 minutes, I'm out there. A couple of people came in and looked, and I think a couple of them turned away and went back in the elevator.
Hopefully it wasn't too cold.
No, it was in a hallway inside the building. But it was just, I ribbed Andre, and he did a return rib.
Wow, those were the days.
Oh, good old days.
Camaraderie was there in those days.
Yeah, it was.
Well, do you have anything you want to plug, your book or anything before we go here? Adventures in Larryland, or your shirt? Where can we buy that shirt?
Well, you know what? A guy that knows me, boo on me. He came up with this shirt because he knew about the song, and you can get a Boo on Me shirt at Pro Wrestling Tees. So pro wrestling teams are making Boo on Me shirts. And if you want to hear Boo on Me, you can go on Spotify. A friend of mine put it on Spotify, and I have no idea how to do Spotify, but it's there. And the other thing that I'm excited about, we'll see what happens, is won a movie called The Unbreakable Bunch.
I've seen the trailer for that. Haku is in it with you, right?
Yeah, Haku's in it. Some other guys are in it. And I'm one of the stars of it. And it was released. It was finished, with the filming stuff. And right after it was finished, the COVID crap hit. And that slowed some things down. It was probably released maybe close to a year ago or so. We'll see what happens. I'll have to call Ray Lloyd. Glacier was the one that worked his butt off for 10 years trying to get this made. And it's a cool movie. It's a science fiction action movie. It's not about wrestling. It's family friendly. The Unbreakable Bunch.
Did Haku kill anybody on the set?
What?
Did Haku kill anybody on set?
No. No, he's a good guy.
Did you ever see him in a fight or anything over the years?
What?
Did you ever see Haku in one of his fights over the years?
Maybe one. It's one of the things why I never went to bars, but there'd be some drunk that would come up to one of the wrestlers and make a wisecrack, but it would always be the wrong guy. They would go up, to Haku. Why would they had no idea Haku was about to break their neck and throw him. But there's another show that's talking about breaking necks, and breaking an arm and popping out shoulders. Check this out on the Google thing. It's a new show. It's a sport, an ancient sport, resurrected from thousands of years ago, and it's called Shoot Pro. You can go to shootprowrestling.com, and they'll tell you all about it. And it should be starting. I think they got a TV deal with something Triller or Trilla that used to be the Fight stream thing. I don't know, but it's really it's a sport. There's no punching. There's no kicking. It's a pure art and science of true submission wrestling. So I'm looking forward to seeing that and hope it does good because, like I said, it's a new sport and really an opportunity for some guys to make big stars out of themselves. We'll see what happens.
Very good. And I'm going to try and find a way to watch that movie because it sounds interesting. And
yes, on Amazon.Prime, I think it's on.
Amazon Prime, The Unbreakable Bunch. Great.
Yes, The Unbreakable Bunch.
Well, thank you. And I'll let you close this off with whatever you want to tell the fans.
Well, all I want to tell everybody is please don't drink and get into drugs and all that stuff. Too many lives are ruined. You want to buzz? Buy yourself a sports car or get a pilot's license, but don't do anything nasty to yourself because we only go through here once, and life is what you make of it. So, enjoy your life and live happily ever after. And that's about the best, advice I can give you. Bruno taught me two things: truth, honesty. If those, your word is your contract. If you live with the truth and honesty, nothing bad can happen to you. And if it does, truth and honesty will straighten it out.